Are you ready to raise your game at Fort Union Military Academy? Sometimes described as the West Point of high schools, Fort Union is a leading college preparatory Christian boarding school for young men grounded in the structure of discipline of the traditional military academy model, and scholarships are available. Fort Union Military Academy's athletic program has produced hundreds of college and professional athletes, including 6 Olympians, 2 Heisman Trophy winners, and more than 120 NFL players. Fort Union Military Academy is a private school and is independent of any direct military affiliation or obligation. Schedule a tour and get started on your journey today by visiting fortunion.com. Fort Union Military Academy. Body, mind, spirit.
Welcome to New England Lacrosse Journal's Chasing the Gold podcast, your destination for all things lacrosse. I'm your host, Kyle Devitte. Across the internet, we have Mr. Owen Hart. What's up, man? How are you doing?
How's it going? The season's coming very close. We've been exchanging a lot of manic texts about our upcoming years, and then I mentioned right before we got on air that I got an email from my kids like, I'm going to miss the first week for hockey nationals. Like, that did not make my life any easier dealing with the stress of the upcoming season. So I'm real and I'm dealing with it.
Dude, I just found out today we start the 23rd. What are we doing? No.
I also had a similar thing where I thought we started a week later, and I'm going to be 2 weeks late for practice. Sorry, Z, I booked vacation.
Yeah, not great. Not great.
Yeah.
We want to welcome in our guest, the reigning champion of the MIAA D2 Boys Lacrosse, Billerica's own Ryan Nickerson. What's up, man?
How's it going? Thanks for having me on. It's always great to talk lacrosse, especially as we, wait for the season and coach's purgatory,
Yeah.
So
I kind of wanted you to like Bruce Buffett, like the reigning, defending, undisputed D2 stage. That would have been pretty good.
I mean, I tried a little bit, just not enough. I'm sorry.
yeah, you can just pay more for targets on our back.
I'm happy to do it.
No, you did it. You did it wonderful.
Yeah, and great point about coaching purgatory is like you're starting to get texts, you're starting to get email. I'm getting texts from parents. I'm like, guys, I'm the JV coach. Like, no, I'm not organizing weightlifting sessions. Okay. No, that's not happening. Like, stop. Your kids are 14. I'm not putting them in the weight room. It's called liability. Look it up. It's great because like you get the energy of we also can't wait for it to start. You think it's just like yourself or the other coaches you coach with are like super excited, maybe a couple players, but it's everyone, man. And as Owen said, we're dealing with it by just like having our shared experience of like what is happening, why are kids already not going to practice, saying they're not going to go to practice, missing games. What does your typical preseason look like with Billerica?
So, I mean, we try to get in the weight room as much as we can, but we have a lot of kids playing winter sports, so I think like you said, we're all gearing up, especially coaches. And then you kind of have to remember that, they're in the prime of their seasons right now, right? We have a hockey team that's going to the state tournament, basketball team's going to the state tournament. We have track kids that, are in state meets. So it's really just kind of about holding back and waiting and getting as ready as we can. And then the week before the season, we get together with a couple towns. We do like a preseason called Spring Meltdown. We've done it for the last like 20 years. I went to it when I was a player. We just do a lot of stick skills, things like that, just to kind of give us 4 days to, get around the kids. And then we hit the ground running. They don't really give you much time, Massachusetts Lacrosse, to get ready for the first game. So
Yeah.
We're opening up the first day you can play too. So it doesn't help, but
Gotta be some snow on the turf too. You got to shovel off before warm ups.
Yeah.
You mentioned the target on your back that we're supposed to be playing on with the state championship stuff. Similarly, it's no secret the Catholics have the target on their back. They always do. It's been the discourse for Massachusetts Cross since post-COVID and amplified. When you guys took down BC High last year, and the target was on their back, and you guys did it, did you feel like the groundswell of support, like for the publics, all that stuff? It kind of got like it was kind of like a big deal that you guys did that, and it was like a really big moment. Like if you're on Massalac's Twitter, like you saw that everywhere, and everybody quote tweeting it. Like, did you experience that in real time? Like, what was that like for you guys?
I Honestly, I think the biggest thing going into the game is I've tried to squish that, right? Like I think people get so caught up in it that it's almost like a barrier. So before the game, my big thing was like in the past, as you know, a couple of years ago, and I was maybe a little more inexperienced, I was probably pushing that, right? Like these kids are not going to the public schools, all this, that, and the other thing that I think a lot of people talk about. Before that game, though, I just said like, let's just be the better team. Like, let's just play better today. And let's not worry about their Catholic school and their this and that. Like, let's just play better lacrosse and be the better team today. And then after the game, Camp Tremblay is on video screaming for the publics, and which good, like great. Like I'm all for that too. Like get one have fun with it. But yeah, that was kind of like my big thing is like just ignore the noise of that and just focus on like the lacrosse piece. Because I do think that people kind of sometimes get defeated before they even play because there's this big Catholic versus public, you know. And trying to eliminate that, I think really, really helped for us going into that game. But yeah, obviously it was fun after seeing, again, text messages from people. You know, I do think there's some camaraderie among the publics, which is kind of cool, you know, cool to feel. But
I think it's a great point for like earlier in my career, I would have said something like that. And when I got back into coaching high school, like I was straight fire all the time, like just fired up for every single game. I had a story for every team. I would tell it before we played them. And now I'm just like, all right, this is what we're doing. Like being in more even keel, which I know no one believes that's watching this, that knows me, but it actually is how I coach now, is a little bit more, not subdued, but like rational with everything, right? Like, and you save the fire for when you need it. I think a lot when you're younger, and you know, I'm not younger, but I have the youth of 1,000 men. Like I'm just a crazy person when I'm on the sideline. Like you have to manage not just your emotions, but the team's emotions the whole time you're there. And when you lose it, usually the team loses it, and it's not always in the way you want, which I think is super interesting and not a problem you really see. Because I coached college for a long time before. It wasn't a problem in college. You could say whatever you wanted. You know, at the end of the day, this kid's still going to go home and, you know, go out that night or try to find a girlfriend or something. He's not worried about what's happening necessarily as much as the high school kids are. And it really affects them. Have you like found that to be true in your experience as well?
oh yeah, for sure. Like I think that's probably like my biggest improvement as a coach since, you know, first starting was really managing the emotions. You know, I think back to like when we played Duxbury in 2022, we called the timeout with like 9 minutes left, and that's when we were losing. We were down 3. And we just like I forget who, I think Dan Trainer, Jeff Trainer's brother, had told me about this timeout philosophy of like just don't say anything. Just everyone just sit there, be quiet. And it was a hectic game, and you know, we're starting to lose control, like down 3 goals, and we called timeout. We just said nothing. I was like, let's just sit here, everyone just breathe, everyone calm down. And I do think that like managing the emotions is such a huge part of it. Like I think emotions get in the way more than, you know, they help at times. Like obviously you need to be geared up for a game, but you know, I think last year that's one thing we did pretty well as a team. Like we had some good leaders that understood that, and you know, it minimizes after the whistle penalties and frustration penalties, and those are the things that like are really going to kill you as a, you know, a high school lacrosse team. So I definitely think that's something that I've gone better at over the years. I was a pretty emotional player when I played, and you know, I'm not playing anymore, so it's, you know, I got to be on the other side of that and kind of bring the emotions down as much as possible. And then there are times you have to bring them up, right? Like there's times when they're flat, and you know when to pull that trigger, and you know, kind of fire them up a little bit and raise the emotion. And it's just kind of managing that, I think, is a huge part of what I've learned over, you know, my last 5 seasons. But
Going back to that Duxbury game, I was going to bring that up. I was at that game. It was my introduction to Billerica Lacrosse. I walked in and I was like, I don't think that they've got this game. It's just you guys were down and then had a great comeback. And after the game, during the interview, you said one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard of all time. You said, I think coaches lose games. I think players win them. When I was a player, I went out and I lost these games. These kids today, they won it. And it was like one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard from a coach. It was my first time I've ever interacted with you. I was like, who is this guy? I like this fire that he has. And also just the passion of like, that was the first time you guys had ever beaten Duxbury. But did you feel like that was a seminal moment, at least for you, your coaching staff, your team, and just the fact that those players kind of got over the hump? I just love that mindset that you had after the game.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it did. Like, I have so much respect for the Duxbury program. Like, I played in the late 2008, 2009, 2010, and that's when Duxbury was, they were the pinnacle of lacrosse in Massachusetts. So, being the team that got to beat them, like, that was huge for me, like, just personally. They are a phenomenal program, and I think it's kind of like, you can beat them and you're doing something right. And it was early in my, coaching career. So, yeah, that was a really proud moment for me, for my, for the team. But like I said, in that, like, they got to accomplish something that all these great Billerica lacrosse players, did it. So yeah, that game was one of, obviously that's one that sticks out in your memory and you get to hold with you. And then they also get a little bit of bragging rights in Billerica for against all these great lacrosse players that I played with that couldn't beat Duxbury. But
Let's talk about a crazier game.
all right.
State championship last year. I'm sure you've talked about it at length, but I haven't talked to you about it. And I couldn't go. We had to have someone else there because I was slated to go on another trip and I just could watch it. I couldn't go and come back. I was leaving that night and I'm watching it and I'm like, is Reading, because it looked like it was over, right? It was one of those games where like, you guys took the control and then like Reading wouldn't go away. They just kept going and they kept scoring and tying the game and getting within one, getting within two. Was there any point in that game where you were just like, why can't we just put them away? Like I always say there's this is a weird pull for a reference, but have you ever seen she's very controversial now with Gina Carano. She had a fight earlier in her career as a mixed martial artist where she was choking someone and they wouldn't tap out. And the interview afterwards is like, I kept being like, why won't you die? Why won't you die? And like, I see that in games now. And I'm like, that's my like first pull is like, why won't they die? Finish them. And they wouldn't. And then it just took a heroic effort from your entire team to like really come together, get past the turnovers and score the winning goal. Like that must've been an emotional experience beyond just winning a championship, right? Because that game alone was so draining to watch.
Yeah.
I can't imagine being on the sideline. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I have some gray hairs in my beard and my hair now from that game. Yeah, it was a roller coaster. Honestly, I knew like even when we're up 7 goals at halftime. Like I knew it was going to be a close game. There's just no way that you're going to like just take down Reading without it being a close game. Like I look at them as being a similar program to us. Like they're not going to. There was zero chance they were going to quit. You know what I mean? And it was just about trying to ride their wave and their fight. And I mean they just kept punching. And like I said, I thought our guys did a really good job. We had a great senior class that kind of could handle that, and we had been through those games. That every time they kind of tried to throw that punch to get ahead, like we would come back, right? Like there was, when they tied it up 11-11, we ended up going up like a huge fast break and finishing it and going up 12-11. So just every time they answered, every time they kind of closed that gap, we just kept answering. But yeah, at no point did I feel good. Like I didn't feel good, there was no way I was going to feel good in that game. Until that last, honestly, not even until the last goal, but until we slapped the ball into the corner on the next face off. Like I did not feel good at any point. And I know Coach Parker probably, he would have felt the same way. Yeah, it's just those type of programs, there's zero chance it's going to be easy or comfortable, or like it was going to be a close game. I think no matter what. Like if it was a close game, the entire game was going to be a close game. If one team went up, it was going to be a close game. So I think we were kind of ready for that. We knew it was going to be something that you could just, kind of cruise control into the end for.
aside from how painful that game is to talk about, because I thought I'd be there with you playing against you at Mass Maritime, but Reading had other ideas in that semifinal game. So this is, only a little bit stings. So it's fine. We've mentioned, or at least I've like caring about growing the game and getting more kids involved. And one of the great things I think you guys do to push that is your neutral site game you guys do every year against Longmeadow at Bentley. And I think more teams are doing it a little bit. I think like Longmeadow played like UMass last year too. And aside from they're just, avoiding the travel, but it's just it makes it feel like more of an event. And that's something I love that you guys do. I feel it feels more special. It feels like more than just a regular season game. And I want to see more teams kind of pick that up and host these, whatever it is, BU, Bentley, and having these big non-conference games at these venues. I think it's one of my favorite things that you guys do, and it's tradition I hope stays for a long time. So I hope that's going to come again this year. I haven't looked at your guys' schedule.
Yeah, no, it's coming again this year. It's actually on a Sunday this year. Talking about trying to keep it going. Like we had to find a date that works, right? Like trying to schedule all these games. We used to do it during April break, which I thought always worked. And then Longmeadow had scheduled some out of state programs during April break, which makes sense. So we had to kind of, pigeonhole a date. So we're playing on Sunday, but yeah, I think it's such a phenomenal experience for our guys. Talking about getting ready for the state tournament, like you're going to play on neutral sites once you hit the semis. So kind of getting used to what's that warm up going to look like, what's the lock-up situation, which is always, it's always kind of, it's different going to Bentley. You have a lacrosse team that's on the field that's practicing, then they get off, and then you have to kind of time it out where you're going to, like, when am I going to get off the bus and all those things. I think all those matter. And it's just a great chance to practice that. The environment, it's always phenomenal. It's always so cold. It's usually colder games of the year for some reason. But yeah, no, we love playing that game. And then we're talking with St. Charles Prep about maybe doing that at Merrimack this year too for our St. Charles Prep game, which I think, that'd be a fun experience too. So hopefully that pulls through. But no, I definitely think it's a great way of growing the game. You get people excited for, a regular season matchup, which just adds a little more excitement. And I think putting it on a neutral site is you get more eyes on it. And it's always, again, it's one of those games that we know it's going to be a battle, and we know it's not going to be, I think it's been like one goal, like 5 out of the last 6 years or something. So it's always a fun game.
Yeah. Are you guys going to play anyone from New Hampshire again? I know you played Exeter last year. Anyone from Connecticut? Any traveling out of state or bringing people in?
We're playing Bickerton again this year. Honestly, like, playing out of state's great, but there's so many good lacrosse teams in Massachusetts that I want to play and I want to match up against those guys. And I think there's merit to go and play in some of these New York teams, Connecticut teams, and things like that. But this year I think we're more loaded up on some of the high class Massachusetts lacrosse teams, which is exciting. We're playing Marshfield this year, which we haven't played Marshfields in a long time. We got Reading back on the schedule. So I think there's just so many good Massachusetts teams that we want to play that we're not playing as many out of states, but we do play Bickerton. I like Ken Blasco over there. So I coach with him over at HGR. So
I do a PSA. People that aren't from New Hampshire think Pinkerton Academy is a private school. And I need to tell everyone listening, it's a public school for Derry. It's not a private school. Please stop sending me emails. Why are you ranking private school? No, it's a public school. They just call it academy. Just like it's Westford Academy, right?
Westford, yeah. I was gonna bring that up. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I just PSA. So I saved a couple people some emails during the season. We're now going again. We're still prepping. The season's literally 3 weeks away, but for me, it's like a full month, but it seems like it's within reach. Is there anything that you're focusing or excited about changing in what you do in terms of, it could be offense, it could be defense, it could be practice, anything that you learned in the off season that you're like, oh, I have to use that?
I definitely think there's we try to find small parts of the game, right, to get better. And I'll give you a practice example. One thing I presented at the Eastern Mass Coach Association conference, and one thing that drove me nuts last year is our water breaks. They just drive me bananas. Cause like you get 2 kids shooting, you get like 5 kids go in the bathroom, you have 3 kids over here. So like, that's one thing that's like, it sounds like minuscule, but like, I want to dial that in at practice because I think it's just one opportunity where you're going to lose focus and you're going to lose kids, or I don't know, that honestly is probably the time when the ball goes off the pipe and hits someone, you know? So that's one thing practice wise. And then game wise, it's like, I think just trying to find little areas where we can improve and, you know, really have dialed up systems for, and the sub game. Like I've been really trying to focus on watching a lot of videos on the sub game and prepping for the sub game and trying to clean that up a little bit. Like last year, I think we really cleaned up our riding clearing, which I think was huge for us throughout the season. I think when the state championship, we ended up clearing it like, I think it was like 90 something %. So I think it's just trying to find little areas of the game that you can improve on, and take them time now, because once the season hits, it's all hands on deck. Between scouting, practice, and everything else. So
you mentioned him earlier in the podcast, and he's a special player. And what was one of the things that got a lot of notoriety about it, something that he played when he was an 8th grader for you, and you've done that a couple of times. Just what was that like, the decision to kind of bring on that grade and integrate them into your program? Because it's a very interesting point that like sometimes I wish I could bring some 8th graders on so maybe they wouldn't leave. But just like what was that integration process like, and how often are you guys doing that? Like, what does that process entail?
yeah, so when they built the new high school, they built it 8th through 12th. So that's kind of why that happened. So it was like right before COVID. COVID kind of, was right when the high school opened. So it went 8th through 12th, so the 8th graders can play high school sports. And then I think Cam specifically, he's a phenomenal player, and like I got to see him in youth, and I knew he was tough and could handle it, and he was a lacrosse rat. So, you have to be that if you want to play in 8th grade. And then it was also, he's a lefty attackman. So, there's only so many lefty attackmen you have. So it was just the right time, and he's the right player. I don't know how often that'll end up happening. It is a big jump. But I definitely think there's 8th graders that, can fill roles here and there. That year we also had our senior now, Mike Rizzuto. Like he was a man down guy. He was an LSM and he just played man down. That was it. Like he played a little bit besides that, but like he was fast. He had a great stick. So we're like, let's get him in on man down. Like he's a little quicker than some of our big seniors and can rotate faster and things like that. But I think it can. I think we do lose kids though too, because they're in the high school as an 8th grader and they get that experience. So I do think there are some kids that end up leaving. We lose a lot of kids to the tech. So I think there's some kids that could be a negative for having an 8th grader. So I'm not as gung-ho about it as I was before. I do think it's still awesome to have them around. It's a great experience for them. But like program wise, I think it has its pluses and minuses for sure.
I tried so hard to get an 8th grader on my team last year. You have no idea. You're not in New Hampshire. The rules are different. In New Hampshire, you have to not have a JV team, and it has to be for numbers purposes, which doesn't sound very official, but that's what my AD told me. So I'm going with that. And now the kid's a freshman. He actually played for Bedford last year, and he's coming in, and I cannot wait to coach this kid. He's so ready to play and so excited, but like, I would have loved to just have him on JV for a year. I think that rule should be relaxed, not for every kid, right? Like not every 8th grader is able to even play JV. As Owen and I were talking about this week, like, yeah, your 120-pound, 5'2" kid is not going to play in the varsity. I'm not going to risk him. It's my job to make sure he doesn't be decapitated. That is like part of the description. Okay. It's in writing. Like, don't let this kid get hurt. Okay. Got it. I'm not going to put him in a situation where he's going to get hurt. But I wanted to bring that up because I remember seeing Cam Tremblay, because this in 2022, when he was an 8th grader in the state, sorry to bring this up, state championship game at Worcester State. I'm watching the game, and all these, I don't know if you guys know this as coaches or whatever, but there was a ton of D3 dudes, like coaches, D3, NESCAC, Liberty League coaches in the stadium. And I recognize them because I work with them. So I'm like, what is that guy doing here? What is that guy doing here? And then he scored. Cam scored. And it was like this like catch and like beautiful finish. And I was like, wait, who did that? And then one of the D3 dudes turns around and was like, that's the 8th grader. And I'm like, oh my God, what? And I open up because we don't get a ton of information back then. So I'm opening up the thing and looking at like, that's allowed? I didn't even know that was allowed at the time. But ever since then, I was like, I am watching this kid forever because he's also one of my people, the Short Kings of the world. Huge fan. I was so pumped when he committed. I was just like, yes, that's a win. That's amazing. It's awesome. And I love how he's able to use his size to his advantage. It's not really like a disadvantage. I think people think that just because you're not 6'4" or whatever, that you can't play lacrosse. The beauty of lacrosse is that you don't have to be tall to be good at lacrosse. You just have to have great hands, great IQ, and understand and pick your spots. And I think he's one of the best in the state at doing that. And seeing his career from that moment until now, his start of his senior year is so cool. I couldn't speak highly enough of it.
Yeah, he's a phenomenal player. He's a phenomenal person. He works, he's, like I said, he's a lacrosse rat he just works on it all the time. He's always playing. He's always in the weight room. He's not a multi-sport guy. He's just a lacrosse player. I was super happy for him when he committed to Siena. It's funny that, like, I think that his size, as people recruiting him, like, he doesn't jump off the page, right? Like, you're not looking there and you can see a 6'3" attackman. You're like, oh, great. I could probably do a lot with that. And then he had one tournament this summer where Siena was there, and he was phenomenal. Like, he just needed that one day that he tore it up. Like, he was just on. And then it was like that night he got a call from them, and it was like, it happened pretty quick after that. But I do think, I think I would recruit him quicker for a Division I team. Like, the size doesn't bother me because, like you said, there's a lot of different ways of playing lacrosse and taking advantage of like being a little smaller. I think that, especially when he was younger, I think Poles had a hard time with him. Like, it's just, you're not used to covering a guy that's, a little shorter. Does the things he does. And he's really good about using his size, and he's filled out. He's filled out now compared to what he was. Like, you look at him as an 8th grader and look at him now, the height isn't that much difference, but he's like a whole different person, which he worked really, really hard on, over the years. That's just the type of person and player Cam is. And I do think he's kind of like a cool thing for Massachusetts lacrosse to look at. Like, it's not easy for a kid that's 5 foot, 5'5", whatever he is. He's probably gonna yell at me for that, but but it's not easy for him to have the success he has had. I think he's pretty well respected, in the area because of that. So, yeah, that was a great Golden State championship too.
You mentioned HCR a couple minutes ago, talking about club set and all that stuff. One of the things that's so kind of crazy is that, like, all these kids know each other. Like, I'm sure that you coach against a lot of kids you coach forward in the summer and all this stuff, and this community of, like, all the Fogos or buddies and talking after the game. Like, what is that kind of been like to know, like, all these kids you probably hear talk about practice or like the scouting report? Like, what's like, how do you feel like that goes season to season? Just all of these kids are so familiar with one another, whether it's social media, whether it's club, and just it's a different kind of vibe than I was used to when I was in high school playing sports. Like, what's that like for you, especially as a club coach?
Definitely think there's the kids definitely know each other. Like, have a coaching club. Like, I coached the 2026s for HCR, and I had that group for 5 years. So I spent a lot of time with players on other teams and things like that. It was kind of a weird dynamic where the players do know each other. They know, like, some of their weaknesses and strengths, and then sometimes this is when you realize you're the coach and they're the player, because they can be one off, right? Like, sometimes you're like, what are you like? You gotta,
yep, been there.
You gotta kind of squish that a little bit. So no, it's definitely interesting. I love coaching HCR because I do get to, like, play again. Like, I like seeing. I coached Owen French a few years ago, before he went to Twisters, and like I got to play against him every year, and he's a great kid. And there's all these other kids that I coached a lot of the St. Charles prep kids. That's why I was excited to get them back on the schedule this year, because I've spent so much time with those kids. And I think that's the club that's the piece that a lot of people miss with club. It's like they look at club as like, this is the recruiting, this is what we need to be doing, and like I just want to get recruiting. That's like a great thing. And obviously it's probably the most important thing with club. But for me, it's also like the experience that I think is, I didn't play club growing up. I didn't play club anything. I was a 3-sport athlete, but didn't play any club sports. And the one piece that I really think I missed out on is like, you get to be with similar minded people, like that you're probably going to be more lifelong friends with than probably some of your high school, friends. These are the kids that all have the same interests with you. That's why I like coaching it too. You get to be around all these other coaches that just love lacrosse. So I do think that that's one thing with club that I think people take for granted. You see these kids bounce around all these different clubs. I don't know how much relationships you're building with, other lacrosse players. And I don't know if you're getting this good experience when you play for 4 or 5 different clubs or 4 or 5 different years, than kind of building more of a, long time friendship with a kid that you play for, 6 or 7 years with. But no, I love good club. And like we talked about the coaching purgatory that gets that off, it just, it's fun just to be there and practice. And I don't know if I could wait all year. I don't think I could, like, without coaching summer and fall clubs. So
Yeah, I think one of the things that's always interesting because I've done youth club work, I won't do high school stuff because of the job and also like my kids, right? Like I just don't feel like that works for me. But also, I always get annoyed when the kids are on the sideline. We're about to play a game. This is high school. I'm coaching, and they're like, "Ooh, that kid's on this high level team," or "Ooh, this is." I was like, "You are on this team. I do not care where that kid played. Like, do not bring up who they are ever again." That's like one of the rules we have. It's just like, I don't want to hear that he plays for Tomahawks Purple. I don't care. Okay. Like I've told this story on the podcast before. My first year at Hopkinton, there was a kid who had an Instagram, and his Instagram was all Tomahawk stuff, which is like, great, fine. But I saw him at practice the next day. I was like, "Hey man, saw your Instagram last night. Great post. What team do you play for?" And he's like, "What?" I was like, "What team are you on right now? Like, you're on this field. What team is this?" And he's like, "Hopkinton." And I was like, "I think you should change your profile picture." And I just walked away just to like leave a thing like, listen, that's great. This is different, right? Like, not to like that it's better at all. That's not the intent. The intent is to like change the mindset of, now we're a team. We're not playing to get recruited. We're playing to win together. And I do think that is the difference between coaching club, where you're learning skills, you're learning how to talk to people. Honestly, like the social aspect is important. You're learning different ways to play different positions in club sometimes. But when you play for your high school team, prep, public, doesn't matter. The goal is not for you to do anything. The goal is for us to win this whole thing, right? Like we win the game, not you get recruited. We win the game. We go forward. We play in the team. And I think like when I talk to college coaches, I always bring that up, like, because they'll ask me like, "Oh, I saw him play club and he did this." And I'm like, and then next thing they'll ask me is like, "What's he like for you?" And I always tell them the truth. Even if like the kid's amazing and he's on this highest level team, I'm like, if he's like a jerk, I'm gonna be like, "Hey, he's kind of a jerk." Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's the right thing to do. And it's also my job to fix that. Right? Like that's part of the hard part of coaching that we never talk about. Right? Like we really don't talk about it publicly that often. Owen and I talk about it all the time. I talk about it all the time with all my other friends that are coaches. I'm just like, how do I get to this kid? Like, I can't get to him right now. I can't make him get to the point where I need him to be. Like, what do you do in this situation? And I think that's so valuable as like a coaching mentality to share that with everyone. Like, have you had that experience? Because you are more experienced in both than I am. Is that something that you've not struggled with, but encountered? And how have you dealt with like a specific situation when that's come up?
I think one thing that is helpful is there might be a kid that you just clash, right? Like they're just, for whatever reason, you might not see eye to eye all the time. And I think one strategy that I think has been really helpful is just leaning on assistant coaches, right? If one person can, kind of mesh with that kid, I think that helps goes a long way. Then I think that I take that from probably like my teaching career. I think that's very similar to teachers, right? Like there's certain students that are going to be hard for everyone, but if you can get one teacher that can kind of get through that student, I think it makes a huge difference. So I definitely think that having assistant coaches that can, like, hey, I'm having a hard time with him, like, can you try to focus a little bit more on, building that relationship with him and kind of understanding what's going on with him and getting through to him. And then just figuring out what the kids respond to, right? Like there's certain kids that they might have something going on and talking to them. And I think it was 2 years ago, we did like the big one-on-one meetings because there was just a rift, right? Like you could just feel it at practice. And we had one-on-one meetings, and then you hear players just unload things from years of built up frustration.
Right.
So I think that just letting them get that off their chest and vent, like, goes a long way. And then you start to understand, like, oh, okay, that's why he's getting frustrated at practice. So I definitely think that is, an important piece too, is just kind of trying to come up with a strategy when those situations do arise. And just knowing that every kid is different and they're all going to respond differently. So just trying to figure out how they tick and how can you get through to them and, make the most of it.
I mentioned on our last podcast with Coach Isif was what I called it in the post-COVID power ranking era, the schedule arms race that is going on, where everyone wants to boost their opponent power ranking. And you guys obviously, you play tough teams, and I'm sure your phone probably blows up from other teams wanting to play you guys because the program you guys have. What's been your philosophy and kind of strategy in terms of building your schedule and your opponents and dealing with that with your non-conference versus your conference schedule? Like, what's that been like for you to balance since we've dealt with this post-COVID, all the power ranking stuff and all that?
Yeah, it's been hard. So our league, we used to play crossover games, right? So they got rid of those. So now we play 8 conference games, and then we play 10 non-conference games. So trying to come up with 10 opponents that, one, are strong, 2, fit against us. And then I think like this year we tried to schedule as pretty much as tough as we possibly could, because I think it gets you ready for the state tournament. And then trying to balance that between also, we take a lot of pride in our league. Like we have Andover in our league, we have Chelmsford in our league, Central Catholic. Like, those are good teams. So I think that league games are really important to us. And I think this is why I don't like going like the teams that go out of their league and go independent. Like I grew up in the NBC, right? I played soccer in the NBC, basketball in the NBC, and lacrosse in the NBC. Like I love the league. Like it's important to me as a person. So it's kind of balancing where you can fit those games, right? Like I don't think we should play St. John's Prep 2 nights before Andover, right? So you got to kind of find a way to balance that schedule where, you're fitting in all these great opponents without taking away from the league as well. So I think that goes a lot into like my thinking, and we have St. John's Prep and PC at the end of the year. So I also think playing teams at the end of the year, get ready to tournament, playing against tournament teams that are far in the tournament, helps prep you for that. So that was kind of my philosophy on scheduling. And the power rankings, you still have to win, right? Like you can schedule all these opponents, but if you get smoked, then it's not gonna help you either. So
Yeah, it's definitely something. Also, ever since they changed it to a statewide format, that's when you kind of saw teams play teams they didn't always play because you were going to maybe see them down the line. You want to get them familiar stuff with being uncomfortable and taking longer bus rides. It just kind of was like, I think the whole state kind of like really, really changed their philosophy once all that happened. And, Kyle, you can't really relate because you just played the same kind of D3 teams all over the time. Sorry for.
I don't want to
bringing
talk about it. I like, dude, I've tried.
Yep.
I've tried. No one wants to lose. In New Hampshire is different. No one wants to lose to a lower division team.
Well,
Straight
because it's just record, right? There's no power ranking. So like it just
Right.
you want the number.
But it's also like not to like call everyone out, but it's the ego of it. Like no one wants to lose to that. Like it's not I don't think it's the same in Mass where you could have a really good D2 team lose to a D1 team. It's not a big deal. Like I feel like, I almost mentioned a team I shouldn't have. There's a couple teams in D2 that like should be in D1. And there's a couple teams in D2 that should be in D3. And in New Hampshire, there should be a Division 4, even though there's like 60 teams. It's just how everything's built. It's totally different. But enough about that. We're not talking about New Hampshire and lacrosse.
Sorry. Yep.
And it's too early for me to get worked up about it. Because then we're gonna go nuclear on the podcast. Let me ask you about this coming season. You lost 5 guys to graduation who are integral to your program on both sides of the ball. How are you going to adjust to that? And like, do you have any new guys coming in from the underclassmen that you think are just going to make the leap and be real dudes their first year on varsity?
I think that this is where the coaching purgatory is killing me because I think we have a handful of guys that's like, which one of those guys is gonna, kind of fill a major role. And I think we have a bunch of kids that have that ability, and it's just trying to figure out what that's really gonna look like, right? We brought back a lot, with some important pieces all over the field, but it's just kind of finding those guys that are gonna make that jump. We've had a big junior senior class last year, right? So it was a lot of upperclassmen. So I think there was a lot of kids that would have played normally, right? They would have been on that field, and I think they would have been fine. And now you get to see what that really looks like, and they're a year older, they're a year, more developed. And it's trying to figure that out fast, right? Like we play LS 8 days in or 9 days in, whatever it is. So you got to kind of get on that fast and try to, find who's the most ready at that moment, and then throughout the season try to see where everyone is at. But I think that's what I'm super excited for this year, to be honest with you. It's just, like I said, with a handful of guys, and it's what's that going to look like once they get, the first team ramps, they get all the more of the focus of the coaching, and like how big a jump can they make, right? Like how do we use this one kid that is a phenomenal shooter? Like, can he hang in the rest of the game? Things like that. So I definitely think we have the players that are going to be able to step up and step into those roles, right? Like we lost a huge senior class that they were all phenomenal lacrosse players, and they're all playing for their colleges now. But you got to think like 3 years ago, that's what these kids were, right? That's what they were 3 years ago. It's the same thing. It's just kind of, we're just seeing them at the younger age again, right? It's like kind of starting that part over. But we also have this big core that just won a state championship. So they're very experienced, and then just taking those kids and kind of mixing it together and see what we can do with it, and see what we have to adjust, and see what we have to fix. Like like last year, we had a senior that took pretty much every face off. Cam Petty, who's he's playing college now, and we have a sophomore that I think it's very good. Like I think it's a very good face-off kid, and he's been putting a lot of work into it. He probably would have been fine to take face-offs last year, right? But we didn't really hit a point that we needed him to. We kept winning, and you're not going to change something if unless you need to. And I think there was a handful of players that we had a practice. Like we were really big on our scout team last year, because you have to keep kids engaged, right? Like you have all these. We did have talented players that weren't playing. We had like some freshmen that were very good. We were really big on being a scout team. And I joke, our lefty, we had a lefty last year as a freshman, Brady Graham. He played like 4 different All-Americans in practice. Like he was the Mansfield lefty attack. He was all these different kids because he had a left hand. So I think building it like that, and by the end of the year, like he was playing great, right? Like, but he just wasn't in our mix of kids. Like there just wasn't a need to fill him in there. Like I had confidence in him, but now I get to see what that looks like day one, right? Without those kids in the way. So that's what I'm most excited for going into the season. It's kind of like, it's like you get to see a whole new picture of what it's going to look like and kind of molding that. And that's why we need these next couple weeks to go by, get the snow off the ground and get the balls out there and, get going. So
I can relate to, I have a bunch of guys this year that are going to be soloing roles. A lot of kids that are now in college playing, they're going to have to fill. And I just so wish I had more than like 6 days before my first game. I'm with you. I just like, let me see these kids play 7 preseason scrimmage games. Like, let's get these, because I'm really interested to see how these kids look. And, but, just really quick adjustment. And then you got Metfield. So put your big boy pants on. I'm sure.
Oh, too, like,
yeah.
You figure it out fast, right? Like when you play those top teams, like there is no time for bad habits. So if you have them, you can't play. Like it is what it is.
You learn to swim by being thrown in the deep end. It's kind of how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Must be nice to have turf to be able to do that.
Kyle got mad at me because I said I had 2 turf fields last night. He was like,
stop telling me how great your facilities are, dude. I'm going to lose my mind. I was a huge fan of Jackson Guerin. I saw him play this fall. Just like, it's like he plays for Freight Train and he plays like a freight train. Like dude did not stop. I love players like that. And I was so pumped to I was like, oh, it's a Billerica helmet. Like, what's he going to do? And then his first shift, he blew a dude up immediately. Like he had him stuck to dynamite and blew him up. He went like this, like arms and legs in the air. And I was like, nice. Love that. So that's why I wanted to talk about some of those players, but you've got Heffernan back in goal. You've got a bunch of these other guys that were huge parts of last year's team that are now seniors. Do you know who your captains are yet, or are you?
We actually have 6 captains, which is a lot, but we had 6 last year. So, we have 6 of our guys that are captains this year, and I think it's a really good group of captains. I think they learned from that group last year. But yeah, Jackson's beast. He is fun to watch, huh?
Yeah. He's 28, right?
Yeah, he's a junior.
Dude, he's not like a 28. That's the best compliment I give him, right? Like, I love seeing guys like that are just not only are you a physical presence, you know when to use it, which I think is one of the most underrated things in youth, like developing players, is knowing when to use your physicality and when not to. Right? You don't want to be the guy that puts your team down every game because you get a bad penalty. You want to be the guy that gets the juice ground ball, the juice hit, whatever you need to push your team over. And, I think Billerica's kind of had a history of guys like that on the team. Yeah. And just 2-way guys that are just, this term is overused, but I'm going to use it.
Oh, yep. Do it.
Gritty, right? Everyone's just grit, coach, grit. I text my captains and they're just we're going to be gritty, coach. We're going to be gritty. I'm like, you play with a pink stick. You're not going to be gritty. Sorry. You need to, let's rewind that and figure that out first. Let's not be flamboyant and showboaty and call yourself gritty. Or nonchalant is the other term I hate. Oh, just nonchalant. Good, coach. I'm don't ever say that to me. That is the worst. I think the worst thing you can be on a lacrosse field is nonchalant. I really think it is. I said that to a kid and he got he's like, why do you say that? And I was like, it's just a word you guys use that you don't know what it means. When you use it and you apply it in the situation, it's bad. It kind of means you don't care. So don't tell me your coach who wants you to care about every single thing that happens that you don't care because you're too cool. Be cool enough to care is kind of the message I always want to bring to all my dudes. I want to bring up one last thing, and I don't know how you're going to react to this. Have you seen the article recently that the Boston accent is dying? Have you seen that at all?
Yeah.
I
Let me
was
tell you,
wondering
the
if
accent's never dying.
I was wondering if you
In
could bring this
Merrimack
up.
Valley, Billerica accent.
Yeah.
I can hear it from a mile away. And like listen, my girlfriend's from Methuen. She's got a little bit of it. But Billerica and Haverhill is a different level of accent. Like, can you tell where, like, what part of Billerica your kids are from the accent? Or like how long their family's been there? Like, I'm always curious because it's so thick and it's so identifiable to people like outside the area and in the area too. Like, oh, you're from here. It's one of those things. Am I like way off base being like the New Hampshire guy without accent?
I think it's probably a little different now than when I grew up, but I mean, you have all these different parts. Billerica's it's a wild place where you have North Billerica, you have Pinehurst, which is the south side of Billerica. You have the lake. We have Nuttings Lake, so that's the lake. That's if you're from there, you're from the lake. Then you have East and West Billerica, and growing up, it was the East and West Billerica were all those were where the nicer houses were and things like that. So I think your North Billerica kids and your Pinehurst kids, those are usually the kids that have the thicker accent. And my family's been on where my parents lived. They've been on that street for 100 years. So I'm old school Billerica. I'm born and bred, and my father went to the high school. My grandmother went to the old high school. So I definitely think you can understand, like Jackson, for instance. Like Jackson has family that went, he's not a first generation Billerica kid. And you can tell he's got the old school toughness to it. But I definitely think there's something to that. And it's not, like I said, it's not as much as it was when I was growing up, where I think there was a bigger difference in, some of the kids with money and the kids without money. But it's such a talked about place. It's crazy. Like it kind of blows my mind sometimes. Like I was just doing the dishes the other day, listening to Joe Rogan podcast, and all of a sudden they're talking about the Billerica 99s. And I'm like, oh, great. Like I just don't, it's pretty talked. Like I said, I think it's just, we've got a pretty good culture of people that are dynamic. And but no, I definitely think that Billerica accent is, well, we take pride in that. So
Billerica is the Southie of the Merrimack Valley.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, I'm wrong. I know Ryan Danahy pretty well. He's the coach there. And every time my buddy and I like grew up like interviewing him and stuff when he was playing, and then he and I actually played senior B for like 1 game, 2 games. And every time I see him, like, dude, Ryan Danahy, dude, sick dude. And he's just like, oh, Devitte. All right. Yeah. All right, we're gonna deal with you.
He's the best. Last year, I
love him.
On Twitter. He's in the middle of coaching college, and he's arguing with some papers about our ranking. So I must have been like 5th grade, went to a Celtic team with a basketball team, and he just came and like kind of chaperoned. It was like, I thought it was the coolest thing as a kid, being in 5th grade and this great athlete like come to the Celtics game with us. And like he's such a phenomenal, he's just such a phenomenal person for Billerica lacrosse. Like we have all these people in all these different levels, and it's great watching what he's done with lacrosse from Billerica. And I think those are the type of things that are those type of people that are program builders. And when you get to see them go and do major things and be part of all these cool things, like all the places he's coached, and you get to go on YouTube and see him shooting around with Paul Rabel, I think those things are just so huge for our program. Just like, Jeff Trainer right now is phenomenal for our program, and to watch what he did, and, watch him in high school and now see him do it in the pros. But it's all cool stuff. So
yeah, it's pretty famous place, man. Like,
yeah,
it's pretty cool. Like I coached college. I had one kid from Billerica on my team, and he was so good and then the rest of the story. Like it was like, oh my God, I don't think I can recruit kids from Billerica. Like, oh my God, this kid's a handful. Like, I know not everyone's like that. I'm not saying anything bad, but like this kid in particular, I was like, I'm scared now. Like this has scared me off. I'm like, he's just so intense. And I think that really does like carry through with the identity of the town, the intensity of how you guys play sports, how you guys share your feelings is renowned.
Passion. I like to call it passion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we love that. But hey, that's all we got for today. We want to thank you again for coming on. Best of luck this season. Can't wait to see you guys play. Kim Tremblay is my new favorite player as a senior. So I'm excited to see him do well. And we want to thank you again for listening to New England Cross Journals, Chasing the Goal podcast. Owen Hart. I'm Kyle Dennett. We'll see you next time.